Guys, how is everybody doing? Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is now officially in theaters right now. With the release of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire in theaters, here's my own personal ranking of all 5 Ghostbusters movies ranked from worst to best. Before we begin, this is not a definitive list. This is just my own personal opinion. So my ranking is not the right ranking. It's just my ranking. These are my thoughts on these movies. So how about instead of being mad at me or saying my list is the wrong list, how about let me know your ranking of all 5 Ghostbusters movies down in the comments below. So, with that all out of the way, here is my ranking of the Ghostbusters franchise. Without a doubt, the worst of the franchise coming in at number 5 is the Ghostbusters remake or Ghostbusters Answer the Call. I've seen people call it that for some stupid fucking reason, but I call it the Ghostbusters remake, and this is the most unnecessary remake of all time. Now, when this movie was releasing, there was a lot of controversy about men and how if you don't like this movie or you don't like the idea of this movie or you have something against this movie, then you're a woman hater, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. And this is not the movie that we wanted at the time. The movie that we wanted at the time was Ghostbusters Afterlife, which we ended up getting a few years later. But I will admit there are some things here to like, mainly that Chris Hemsworth in this movie, he is the entire reason that I even enjoy this movie. Excuse me, he's the only reason I would come back to watch this movie. He's the only reason I find myself enjoying the movie in a small bit. And the effects, especially for 2016, this was the point of their career to where digital effects could really help Ghostbusters with their ghost effects. I'm gonna show you off my hat for some reason. But yeah, other than that, nothing about this movie is good. I like these cast members. I think they're all great actresses, but they're just not funny in this movie. To me, I never really laughed throughout this entire movie. The only time that I would really laugh is when Chris Hemsworth was on screen. That was the only reason I would laugh is when Chris Hemsworth was on screen doing what Chris Hemsworth does, and he was hilarious in this movie. But yeah, none of the movie is funny. The villain is generic as fuck, and just nothing about this movie I really enjoyed, and just ugh. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Ghostbusters 2, the first Ghostbusters sequel. Why every time I gotta wear a hat it does this to me? But I will admit this. I hate that remake of Ghostbusters. It's one of the most unnecessary remakes and one of the most unnecessary movies ever. This one came a very close second to be my least favorite for a number of reasons. However, I do think there are good things about this movie. But the reasons I think that this movie came close is because this movie just doesn't offer anything new. They really don't offer anything new except for like a new villain and all that, which none of them are really memorable or good. But this is just a beat for beat movie of the original Ghostbusters. They don't offer anything new, nothing really creative. It's just the same movie to where they're kind of trying to get back the Ghostbusters. They're trying to start up the Ghostbusters again, show they're not a joke. They capture a ghost. Everybody thinks they're heroes. This one guy does not like them whatsoever. Gets them thrown in jail. The mayor fires him, gets him out of there. Ghostbusters come back. They look like heroes. They save the day and they're all praised all once again. And even the smallest things, like Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver's situation, to where their whole love story starts to build up again. And then Sigourney Weaver apparently goes off as a kid with nobody. The person that we don't meet might as well just be Vickman's kid. It just doesn't offer anything new. However, I do think the effects in this movie are good. For a 1989 version, it's still good. And the comedy in this movie is still great. It's not as good as that original movie, but it's still good in this movie. But how it just doesn't offer anything new. And the villains, I guess, because you got like this pink slime, you got this like painting in this movie, you got this like weird wacko dude that has the hots for Sigourney Weaver. None of these villains really interest me. The only villain that I really focus on is the pink slime, which more I think about it, they should have talked more about that painting in this movie because they build that guy up a lot, but they don't really do anything with him. But it's just this movie should have just been better, especially everybody who was involved. You got everybody to come back. You got Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd to write the script again, Ivan Reitman to direct the movie. You got the cast members, supporting actors. side characters. You get everybody from that first movie to come back. Same ingredients, same everything, but this time it just turns out mediocre. This movie should just have been better, especially everyone involved. It should have been better. But it's still an enjoyable movie enough. I could see myself putting this movie on every now and then. But the only reason I probably rewatch this movie is right after I watch the first movie or when I'm binging the entire Ghostbusters franchise, which I just did, so that'll be a very long time since I do that again. But it's an okay sequel. It just should have been better. I don't hate the sequel. I don't think it deserves all the hate that it gets. I still enjoy it. I just don't like it, but I also just don't hate it. And at number three is the new kid on the block, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I believe it was in like my top five, possibly even top four, if I'm being honest. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire was a movie I was really looking forward to, especially after Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I will talk about. This movie just had a lot of hype going in. I was really hoping this movie would step back from nostalgia, but kind of to where if I could admit Afterlife does focus a little bit on nostalgia kind of, but at the same time I felt that they did a good job of blending it. But however, I was really hoping this movie wouldn't do that, but unfortunately they kind of did. However, does this movie deserve the lowest rating for a Ghostbusters movie? Does this movie deserve any of the criticisms, all the hate that it's getting? God, no, because especially when you look at the Ghostbusters remake, which I'm gonna compare this movie to, it's like you think that movie is better than this one, then I think you're on crack, buddy. However, I do think this is just another good passable sequel and a passable Ghostbusters movie. This movie was just a lot of fun. This movie, it doesn't have, it definitely has the heart of Afterlife that carries on to here. But I feel there's like a lot of subplots in this movie that don't really go anywhere. So spoilers for Frozen Empire. There's also like there's this weird ghost girl in this movie that has like kind of builds a relationship with Phoebe in this movie, where those two kind of become friends and possibly kind of start a relationship with because this movie kind of gives a hint at that Phoebe possibly might be a lesbian throughout this movie because those two kind of like a relationship thing going on in this movie, but they don't really say it, but they kind of give hints to, which I'm not against because I support LGBTQ. I'm sorry, I know that pisses a lot of people off, but that's just how it is. But they give hints to that, which I'm not against. If that ends up what they do with Phoebe, I'm okay with that. But they give hints to, but they don't really do anything with. But well, I have seen this, a lot of people say there's too many characters in this movie. I would disagree. I think all these characters they each get their time to shine because, especially Winston, he's not in the movie much, but he does give time to shine. But I honestly would have liked to see Vinkman more. He's not really in the movie much. If anything, all the trailers kind of showed all of his scenes except for like maybe one scene in this movie, which it's kind of understandable why they wouldn't show Bill Murray much because he is up there in age. It's really impressive that he's even in this movie at all. But yeah, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, it was a fun time. I would recommend it if you enjoyed Afterlife. I would recommend it. I would just recommend it in general if you're a big Ghostbusters fan. This movie's definitely not going to be for everybody, but I thoroughly enjoyed Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It was a fun time. I really enjoyed watching it. I would rewatch it again. I'm hoping this movie is a success at the box office. I'm hoping that we'll get a third movie to end this new trilogy of movies. I really enjoyed Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It was a fun time, and it simply just doesn't deserve any of the hate that it gets. Coming in at number two is going to be Ghostbusters Afterlife. This is my second favorite Ghostbusters movie. This is my favorite sequel, Ghostbusters. This is my favorite sequel of the Ghostbusters franchise, and this movie it has the most heart of the franchise. I love this movie so much. I love the heart of this movie. I love the new introduction of the Spangler family, especially with Phoebe, who's become like a fan favorite at this point, which is understandable. She's one of my favorite characters of the franchise at this point now. And this movie just has the most heart. That is why I love this movie so much. Is just how much heart, how much love was put in this movie, and respecting Harold Ramis's um legacy. Excuse me. They absolutely respect his legacy. They absolutely respect him as a person, and especially the ending of this movie will get you to tear up. It did for me, anyways, because they just respect the hell out of him, and I love what this movie does. And I thought it was great to see the original Ghostbusters come back. That was a great scene to see them all come back. That was great. I love the dynamic between Phoebe and podcast. That was great. And the only negative that I have with this movie, and unfortunately they don't fix anything with Frozen Empire, is that they don't really do anything with Finn Wolfhard, which I'm glad he takes a backseat in this movie, but they have this whole relationship thing with him and this one girl that works at this restaurant. He goes to he gets a job there to get closer to her, but they don't really build that anything. They have like only a few scenes, but they don't really do anything with that. And unfortunately, they don't do anything with that either in Frozen Empire. They don't show that they're dating or they're talking still. They don't do anything like that in Frozen Empire, unfortunately, and so that's still a major issue with me with this movie. But other than that, Frozen Empire, Ghostbusters Afterlife is a great sequel. It's a fantastic legacy sequel. It's a love note to all Ghostbusters fan. It absolutely respects the legacy of that original movie and Harold Ramis. Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's a perfect sequel. It's one of my favorite sequels of all time, and I would probably argue it'd be in like my top 50 favorite movies of all time. That is how much I love Ghostbusters Afterlife. Of course, coming in at number one, there's no movie in on God's earth that is going to top the original Ghostbusters. I will tell you this now. If somebody came to me, I don't know, in the few years from the future to come and tell me this movie topped Ghostbusters, this Ghostbusters sequel topped this one, I would tell you, buddy, you're on meth, you're on crack, because nothing is going to top this movie. This is a perfect movie. This is one of the best 80s movies. Is just one of the best movies, period. Ghostbusters is a fantastic movie. It's such a great concept. You got a great cast, you got great comedy, you got great ghost designs. Just everything about this movie is fantastic. And it's hard to talk about it because there's nothing about this movie nobody has said about this movie. Like, anything I tell you about this movie, it's nothing you haven't heard. Ghostbusters is one of the most celebrated movies of all time. You can ask a guy in his 40s and he will tell you that he loves this movie. You can see 40-year-old men on Halloween dressed up as a Ghostbuster, which is understandable because Ghostbusters is a fantastic movie. It's one of the best movies ever made. It's one of the most celebrated movies ever made. I would probably argue it is the most celebrated movie of all time. Ghostbusters is just a fantastic movie, and I've never met one person that has not said they love this movie. I've not met one person that hasn't said they like this movie. The only people I talk to, they say they love Ghostbusters. I've not met one person that said, I like Ghostbusters. They say they love it. It's going to take one hell of a movie to top this movie, which I never think will happen. Ghostbusters is a perfect film. If you have not watched it, then I think there's seriously something wrong with you because this is a perfect movie. And again, nothing about this movie has not been said. Thank you all so much for watching my ranking of all 5 Ghostbusters movies. Hopefully, I'll get to do this ranking once again if we get another one, which hopefully we will. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked my ranking, like it. If you love to subscribe and hit bell notifications so you will get notified for my latest videos. Please leave me your ranking of all 5 Ghostbusters movies in the comments below. And until my next video, I'll see you all next time.